World History 1 students. This is Mr. Everton, and this is a video all about China and Japan, particularly Japan. Once again, I'm having technical difficulties, and I'm not able to show you my face in the lower corner of the screen, as you are no doubt accustomed to. I'm sorry. I know Jordan in particular will be devastated. Today we're going to be talking about what shaped Japanese culture. And to start off, we're going to talk about geography, because Japanese geography helped to shape Japanese culture. How, you might be wondering? Well, if you look at this map, you can clearly see that Japan is a collection of islands. We have a fancy social studies word for that. It's called an archipelago. An archipelago is just another name for a group of islands. And this group of islands, this archipelago, if you will, is separated from most of Asia by the Sea of Japan, which is also referred to as the East Sea. You do need to know both names. So the Japanese archipelago is separate from the rest of East Asia, and that helped it to evolve its own unique culture in some ways. It is, however, very close to China and the Korean Peninsula, and so it is thus also influenced by East Asia in some other ways. It is also important. Oh, there I have a circle circling the Sea of Japan. Sorry that circle was not more timely. It is also important to note that Japan has very mountainous terrain. Here you can see an example of that mountainous terrain. It's called Mount Fuji, one of the most iconic parts of the Japanese landscape. It also shows you that Japanese terrain is very rocky, and that the people of Japan turned to the sea in order to get what they need. There's a lot of fish in the Japanese diet because there's not as much arable land for agriculture, much as was the case in Greece when we talked about ancient Greece. So when we're talking about Japan, we need to talk about their ethnic religion, which is called Shinto. Shinto is, as I just said a second ago, the ethnic religion of Japan, the indigenous religion of Japan. That means it's the religion that came from Japan and that is unique to Japan. Nobody else outside of Japan practices Shinto. It is only in Japan. And Shinto is a form of animism, which is similar to what I talked about when I talked about West Africa and their religion. Animism is a belief that different parts of the natural world have spirits. So trees, a particular tree might have a spirit, or a mountain might have a spirit, and you ascribe these different animated spirits to these parts of nature. These nature spirits are referred to as kami, and people pray to these nature spirits, and they build shrines to them. And one of the most famous and easily seen aspects of Shinto are these shrines. Shrines like this one, you can see here, and shrines like this one as well. These shrines are rebuilt periodically from time to time. These are not the same shrines that have been in the same place for all of Japan's history. From time to time, the shrines are rebuilt. Eventually, over time, Shinto became the official state religion of Japan, and it was used as a tool to try to create support for the emperor. So Shinto became part of Japan's national identity and became, worshiping the emperor and making the emperor a sacred person became part of Shinto as a way to try to unify Japan as a country. And we've talked about this from the very beginning of class. I think Gary, the honor student, is out sick today, but if he was here, he would remind you that it's called theocracy. Yeah. Sorry that you're not here, Gary. I hope you feel better soon. Okay, so we've been talking about Japan, but across the East Sea, or the Sea of Japan, from Japan is China. And the last time we talked about China, there was a lot going on there. We talked about the Han Dynasty. Now we're talking about something called the Tang Dynasty, pictured here on this map. At the end of the Han Dynasty, Buddhism made its way into China. Buddhism became a very important part of Chinese religion and coexisted with Taoism and Confucianism. Also, China developed porcelain, which was a very desirable product that was used to make dishes and vases like the one you see here. China developed character writing, as you see here, which they were doing on paper. You can see that character writing is done on paper, and you can see also they have some paper money. China was the first place in the world to issue paper money. It didn't actually work out that well for them. They ended up going back on it because they had some inflation and they returned to coins. Also, Taoist priests invented gunpowder, supposedly in an attempt to they were mixing chemicals together in an attempt to create some kind of medicine, and they ended up creating gunpowder, which was used in fireworks and later in guns and artillery. And of course, there is still the Chinese civil service system, where you have students taking a very rigorous exam on Confucianism in order to enter the Chinese government. And it's a way of making sure that you have smart people running your government. So I'm going over all of these things because China is the most important culture and civilization in this region, and they had a huge effect on all the other countries around them, including Vietnam, which they conquered, and Korea, which they conquered, and also including Japan, which they did not conquer. One of the reasons that China had such an important influence was because of its trade, including the Silk Road here, and also the Indian Ocean trade routes, which it also participated in. And through its trade, it helped to diffuse or spread goods and ideas throughout Asia and into its neighbors. Neighbors including Japan. Over time, Chinese merchants, had a lot of influence in Korea, on the Korean peninsula, partially because Korea paid tributes to China. Chinese merchants made their way from Korea across the Sea of Japan to Japan. And when they did that, they brought their culture with them. So some of the ways that China affected Japan was that Buddhism spread to Japan from China. And Buddhism coexisted really well with Shinto, because Shinto isn't really like a religion in the sense, it's a religion, but it doesn't have like really strict rules about how you're supposed to live your life. It's more like a cultural thing. It's beliefs about the way the world works, but it's able to coexist with other religions. And Buddhism coexisted with Shinto very well. And today, most Japanese people practice both Buddhism and Shinto together. Here you can see a Japanese statue of the Buddha. Another aspect of Chinese culture that affected Japan was architecture. Pagodas, like the one you see here, originally got their start in India, and then they made their way to China along with Buddhism, and then gradually they spread their way across the Sea of Japan to Japan, and now you have pagodas like this one. And then also character writing. Japanese writing is heavily influenced by Chinese writing, and it is in a very similar style, a pictographic writing system with many, many characters used to express ideas. In Japan, the characters are called kanji. And here you have a Japanese student learning how to write kanji. So to summarize, Japan developed a unique culture because it is an archipelago separated from the rest of Asia by the East Sea, but that unique culture included Shinto, which is the ethnic religion of Japan. However, Japan was still influenced by China in a variety of ways, most importantly, Buddhism spread to Japan from China. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.